You never really think it's going to happen to you. Betrayal, I mean. You hear about it. Buddy's wife runs off with a yoga instructor. Coworker gets blindsided by a business partner. It's something other people go through, until you're standing in your own kitchen with a blank bank app and no idea where your life just went. She drained every dollar from our account while I thought she was at a spa getting massaged with hot rocks and cucumber water for clean wire transfers. All done on a Saturday while I was home loading the dishwasher and listening to her Spotify playlist like a complete idiot. $143,000. Our joint savings, emergency fund, even 2 payments from clients I hadn't gotten around to invoicing yet. Every cent I'd earned in 15 years of building my landscaping business by hand, gone. I stood there staring at my phone, lime juice still stinging the cut on my thumb from prepping dinner. I refreshed the app twice, thinking it had to be a glitch. It wasn't. Then I called Lindsay. Voicemail. Not full. Just off. I waited an hour before calling the bank, and after 34 minutes of smooth jazz and fake apologies, some guy named Rob finally came on and walked me through it like I was a toddler. Yes, Mr. Riley. All 4 transfers were verified and authorized through the joint account login. And yes, I do see that the recipient account is in your wife's name. I'm really sorry, but this is technically not considered fraud. Technically, I asked. So she can rob me, as long as she smiles while doing it? He said he understood my frustration, which I'm pretty sure is code for "this isn't my problem," and offered to email me PDFs of the transfers. I hung up and walked outside before I threw the phone at the fridge. I drove to her sister's place first. Karen opened the door just enough to keep the chain latched. "She's not here," she said. "Where is she?" "I don't know. She just said she needed space. That she was suffocating." Suffocating? I laughed. From what? Meal planning and stable income? She told me not to get in the middle. You are the middle. Karen closed the door without saying goodbye. The next day I called her office. She'd quit a week ago. No forwarding number. I checked her Instagram, deleted. Checked her Venmo, empty. Even her old high school friend group hadn't heard from her. One of them texted me back. "Thought she was with you? Hope everything's okay." I didn't answer. The text came 3 days later. "Please don't hate me. I needed to do this for myself. You'll be okay, Matt. You always are." That was it. No call. No apology. Just a gentle, "good luck out there," after looting the life we'd built together. We'd been married 11 years. This wasn't a breakdown or a panic decision. This was planned. Months in the making. I started digging and found out she'd opened a separate LLC in her name using my business address, nearly identical to mine. She even stole my logo, made a fake invoice template, and redirected 2 commercial contracts to her version of the business. My clients had paid her without even realizing it wasn't me. She hadn't left for another man. That would have made sense. This was worse. She left for her, and my money. I booked a consult with a downtown lawyer, guy with a crisp haircut and zero emotion. Told him the whole story. She had full legal access, he said. It's marital property. If she didn't commit forgery, it's not a criminal case. So what do? File a civil claim. Prepare to spend more than you'll recover. I asked what that meant. He smiled like a dentist about to drill. It means you're screwed. I handed over $350 for the privilege of hearing that. Honestly, if he'd thrown in a slap across the face, I might have thanked him for the full experience. We lost the house a month later. I couldn't cover the mortgage and utilities while chasing her ghost. I sold most of my equipment to pay off the shared debt she'd racked up in both our names. Didn't know about those cards until the bills started showing up. By July, I was living in my cousin Mike's garage on a cot next to a shelf full of expired protein powder. "You should go out," Mike said one night. "Meet someone." "Yeah," I said. "Let me just grab my best outfit from the pile of clothes I haven't washed in 3 weeks. You want a beer?" "I want my damn money." He didn't ask again. Some nights, I'd lie there and try to remember the last real conversation I had with Lindsay before she disappeared. It was maybe a week earlier. We were watching some dumb Netflix documentary about people climbing frozen mountains, and I asked her if she'd ever want to do something like that. She looked at me, kind of soft. "No, you're my safe place," she said. I remember I smiled. Felt lucky. She kissed me on the cheek and went to bed early. 3 days later, she was gone. Sometimes I wondered if she was scared I'd come after her. Like I'd turn up at her new place and make a scene. But that's not me. I don't yell. I don't throw things. I don't chase people. She knew that. That's why she knew she could get away with it. And for a while, she was right. I kept working odd jobs under the table, hauling irrigation systems, helping install some artificial turf in the boiling heat, whatever paid cash. I didn't drink, didn't talk much, just waited for time to pass. I thought maybe the numbness would lift eventually, but it didn't. Then one day in late August, something strange happened. I got an email notification in my spam folder about a $50 transfer made through my business name to some crypto wallet. The name was off, just slightly. The logo was mine. The invoice number looked real. But the sender email wasn't one I recognized. It was clean, professional. Just not quite right. I almost deleted it. But then I clicked through to the domain registration info. And there it was. A contact name. A real one. Not Lindsay's, but a name I'd never seen before. And something about it tickled the back of my brain. Like I'd heard it in passing, but didn't register it until now. I didn't know what I was looking at yet, but I knew what it wasn't. It wasn't random, and it wasn't over. I didn't go after her. Didn't post her name online. Didn't call mutual friends to tell my side. Didn't hire a PI. I knew how that story ended. Guy gets humiliated, goes on a crusade to win sympathy, and winds up looking like a sad, obsessed ex-nah. She left me broke, sure, but the one thing I still had was time. Time to disappear, just like she had. Time to think. I rented a tiny place in South Tucson. Single window, no garbage disposal, hot water that worked when it felt like it. But it was paid for and quiet. I got on a crew pulling irrigation lines for new builds. Hard work, boring as hell, but no one asked questions. I told people I used to run my own company. Left it at that. Some nights I'd lie on the floor, staring at the ceiling fan and replaying the last 6 months like a bad loop. Other nights, I'd open my laptop and go back to that email. The one about the $50 crypto transaction sent from what looked like my old business alias. The footer had that name, Ethan Rowe. I didn't know who he was, but the way it was all dressed up, domain names, fake branding, the slick formatting, it didn't smell like spam. It smelled like planning. So I flagged it, saved the metadata, did a little quiet digging. Then I let it sit. I told myself I was just curious, not doing anything with it, just watching. Meanwhile, I kept my head down and worked. One of the guys on the crew was getting ripped off by a web agency, charging him $800 a month for a basic site and a contact form. I offered to build him something cleaner for $200. He said yes. That turned into 2 more guys. Then 4. It wasn't a business, not yet. Just evenings tweaking templates and writing copy, building payment pages, connecting Stripe accounts. The kind of work Lindsay used to roll her eyes at when we ran the company together. That stuff bores me to death, she'd say. I'm a people person. She liked the front-facing stuff, the marketing, the handshakes, the brunches. I handled the structure. And now, all these years later, I realized the structure was where the power was. A few weeks into this new rhythm, I ran into someone I didn't expect, Chris, one of Lindsay's old real estate buddies. We bumped into each other at a gas station off Oracle Road. He looked me up and down like he wasn't sure if he should say hi or just pretend not to notice. Matt, he said finally. Hey, wow, you, still around here? I nodded. Yup. Haven't seen Lindsay in a while. Heard she moved out of state. Yeah, I said. She didn't tell me. He gave this awkward half laugh and muttered, damn, then tried to pivot. Anyway, I'm working with a guy now, real sharp, starting some kind of tech platform. Lindsay was talking about it before she left. Said it was going to be big. What kind of tech? Something with AI and real estate analytics. The guy's name is Ethan. Ethan Rowe. I froze. Just for a second. Then I smiled like I didn't know the name. Huh, I said. Small world. Chris didn't linger. Just waved and got into his car. That night, I pulled the laptop back out and dug deeper. The Ethan Rowe name wasn't attached to much publicly, but a few LLCs popped up in New Mexico and Nevada, shell companies with vague descriptions, B2B solutions, predictive data, lifestyle commerce. All recently registered, and one of them had a listed founding partner, Lindsay Marie Riley. So that's where she'd gone. I sat back in my chair and stared at the screen for a long time. Didn't feel angry. Didn't feel sad. Just cold. Like I was looking at a blueprint I hadn't realized I'd been holding for months. I closed the laptop. Went to bed. Slept 8 hours for the first time in weeks. A couple days later, I was back on site when Mike called. I hadn't spoken to him much since moving out of his garage. He asked how things were going. Quiet, I said. You seeing anyone? Nope. Still thinking about her. I looked down at my boots, covered in dust and concrete bits. Not really. You sure? Yeah, I said. I've got other things on my mind. He didn't press. By now I had 7 small business clients. I kept my rates low, my name out of anything public, and my questions quiet. And when one of them mentioned a new venture a local woman was buzzing about, a startup with an unreal return projection, I didn't even ask the name. I just nodded and took the job. It wasn't revenge. Not yet. But something colder was waking up. I was restocking drywall adhesive at a job site when my phone buzzed with a name I hadn't seen in 2 years, Marty Denson. He used to run distribution for one of our largest landscape supply vendors, and back when Lindsay and I were still pretending to be happy, we saw him at every industry event from Flagstaff to Vegas. Matt, he boomed the second I answered. Hey man, I just wanted to say, you guys crushed it. That pitch deck was tight. Like tight. Real smart using all that AI talk without getting too technical. I blinked. Sorry, what pitch? There was a beat of silence. Then, I just assumed. It's got your fingerprints all over it. The startup thing, Havenspark. Lindsay said you guys were working together again. New chapter, or whatever. I didn't answer right away. Just stared at a plastic bin of fasteners like it had personally betrayed me. He kept going. I've got a buddy looking to invest. He wanted to know if you'd vouch for it. I finally found my voice. I'm not part of it, Marty. No. Another pause. Then quieter. Huh. Okay. Guess I got the wrong idea. Yeah, I said, then added before he could hang up, do me a favor. Don't put any money in yet. Marty chuckled, trying to keep it light. You saying it's shady? I'm saying it's a story that's still being written. He didn't laugh that time. Just said he'd circle back later and hung up. That was the first moment it stopped being abstract. I wasn't just watching anymore. I was being mistaken for a co-conspirator. And that meant people were starting to connect dots that didn't exist yet. But I could fix that. The Havenspark name kept popping up like mold after a flood. Instagram influencers were tagging the visionary team behind it. A few local vendors I used to know were gushing about early access investment opportunities. And every time Lindsay's name came up, it was paired with his. Ethan Rowe, the tech partner no one could quite explain. I didn't need to explain him. I'd already seen enough. Weeks earlier, when I first traced that shady email back to him, I thought it was just some sloppy coincidence. But now, seeing my name dropped at pitch meetings, I realized they weren't just building a company. They were using the ghost of the company I'd built. Same vendor list. Same invoice structure. Even the same design language. It was like someone broke into my shed, copied my tools, slapped their names on the handles, and left the door open just enough for me to notice. So I started flipping through old contracts, vendor contacts, and archived client lists. Not out of nostalgia. Out of curiosity. I wanted to see just how many of my people were getting pulled into her orbit. I found 7 direct overlaps. One of them, a tile supplier named Hector, had already written a $5,000 early equity check. Think I'll make it back? He asked me over the phone. I hope so, I said. But don't write any more until they launch something real. Hector hesitated. Lindsay said you helped build the back end. She's lying. He went quiet, and I knew it wouldn't be the last time I'd have to say those words. The worst part wasn't that they were stealing. It was how sloppy they were about it. The AI product didn't exist. The demo site was just a front-end template with canned responses. A few investors had asked about a beta launch date, and one of them got sent a link that led to a page I'd personally built 5 years ago for my old company. Copied word for word. Except they swapped my logo for theirs. I should have been furious. I wasn't. I just took a screenshot, archived it, and moved on. I got an invite to a virtual investor seminar a week later, forwarded to me by a guy who thought I was already involved. Would love your feedback on this, man, he wrote. These two are on fire. So I clicked the link. Didn't register. Didn't enter my name. Just sat there, camera off, mic off, watching in the corner of the screen as Lindsay took the lead. She looked sharp, confident. The same tone she used to use when she pitched lawn care packages to upper-middle-class HOA boards. We believe in predictive environments, she said. We're building a platform that understands not just how people live, but how they want to live. Ethan barely spoke, just nodded, smiled, buzzword something about integration layers. They got a dozen new investor inquiries that day. A few of them were mine. Fake names. Real interest. They'd follow up. I'd make sure of it. That night, I stood in my kitchen, staring at the cheap LED bulb above the sink, and realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was ready. The cracks were showing. A supplier getting nervous. A vendor asking questions. And now people assuming I was involved, which meant my silence had weight. One message from me could shatter the image. But not yet. No, I wasn't ready to burn it down. I was just making sure I'd be the one holding the match. It started with a crack, not a bang. A slow, quiet hairline fracture in the shiny surface Lindsay and Ethan had built. A guy named Dennis Caldwell, Mesa roofer. I remembered him from years back, stood up in the middle of a live Havenspark Q&A and asked a question that shouldn't have been hard to answer. When are we going to see a product? It was supposed to be a closed Zoom session for select investors. About 25 people on the call. I was one of them, silent and unregistered as always, camera off. Lindsay was leading the presentation, flicking through slides, using phrases like synergized engagement layers and predictive consumer mapping. Ethan was there, nodding like a bobblehead, barely speaking. Dennis interrupted her halfway through a monologue about smart inventory funnels. I said, "When are we going to see a product? You cashed my check 2 months ago. All I've seen are concept slides and broken beta links." Lindsay froze for a half second, just enough for the room to feel it. "We're still refining our launch timeline," she said. "This is bleeding-edge tech, Dennis. Visionaries like you know it takes time." "Yeah," he said, "but I know a fake deck when I see one, too." Someone else unmuted. Then another. The audio turned messy. Why was my email forwarded to a home decor brand? Are you actually using AI or just calling it that? Why's the server in Ukraine? Ethan leaned forward like he was going to take charge. Instead, he reached off-screen and hit a button. The call ended. Just gone. The next morning, Havenspark's site was down. Not a crash. A deliberate blackout. The domain was still registered, but the pages had been wiped. Instagram deleted. LinkedIn profiles vanished. I wasn't surprised. They'd started pulling threads without knowing the whole sweater was rigged to unravel. Then the story started bubbling up. Refund requests ignored. Vendor payments delayed. One investor, someone I recognized from my early days in the landscaping business, posted on Twitter, "Be wary of any operation tied to Ethan Rowe or Lindsay Riley. Zero transparency. We've hired legal counsel." Another thread picked up traction on a real estate tech forum. Someone linked to an old site Lindsay had built off one of my recycled templates, still live, still embedded with the metadata I'd hard-coded years ago. My name was buried in the back-end comment field, plain as day. That afternoon, I got the call. Blocked number. I answered on the second ring. "Matt." Her voice was tight. She wasn't calling to catch up. "Lindsay." There was no hesitation this time. "I don't know what you think you're doing," she snapped. "But this isn't funny. People are connecting dots that don't exist." I didn't say anything. She kept going. "I just got off the phone with someone who swears you leaked our investor list. That you hacked our infrastructure." "Hacked?" I laughed, low and quiet. "You think I need to hack what you built? You think I stole from you?" "No," I said, calm and surgical. "I know you did." Her voice cracked. "This isn't about that. That was personal. This is business. You used my name. You recycled my code. You pitched my old client list like it was some new discovery. You didn't just borrow my past, Lindsay. You built a house on the grave you left me in." "You're being dramatic." "No," I said. "You are. But not for much longer." She switched tactics fast. "Look, I didn't mean for it to go this way. Ethan," he pushed the tech angle. "I just handled the outreach." "So blame him. That's what you do, right?" Her silence told me everything. Then came the last-ditch play. "Matt, please, just say we worked on it together. Say this was a misunderstanding. If you make one post, just one, we can stabilize. We're not criminals. You don't want to drag this down with me." I let the silence hang for a moment. Then I said, "You already dragged it down. I'm just making sure the fall's clean." She tried one last thing, anger, sharp and frantic. "You were always jealous of me. That's what this is, isn't it? You couldn't stand that I moved on, that I did something bigger." I smiled, but didn't let her hear it. Then I hung up. After that, the unraveling picked up speed. An anonymous Medium post surfaced, detailing shell companies linked to Havenspark. The post didn't mention me, but it was very precise. Too precise to be guessed. A few of the embedded screenshots had certain details highlighted in just the right way. as if someone who knew what to look for had drawn the map, but let others fill in the route. Reddit threads followed. A former intern for one of Ethan's previous side businesses claimed his resume was completely fabricated. Another user dug up a cease and desist letter Ethan filed against a podcast host who asked too many questions. By the end of the week, Lindsay's name was trending, but not in the way she liked. One of her old vendor partners texted me out of nowhere. Someone who hadn't spoken to me since before the split. Heard the startup's tanking. Didn't realize she stole from you too. Should have said something. You okay? I didn't answer. Didn't need to. The collapse wasn't loud. It didn't come in with sirens or lawsuits. It came with silence. With missing funds. With reputation rot. And the best part? They never saw me in the room. But I was there. Every file. Every whisper. Every glitch. And this was just the start. They thought I hadn't lifted a finger. That was the point. Lindsay believed she got away with everything because I stayed quiet. But quiet isn't the same as still. I wasn't healing. I wasn't sulking. I was building. Not to strike, but to let them walk right into it themselves. That email, the crypto wallet, the fake domain, the accidental transaction, I sent it. Right after I traced Ethan's name to a shell company. I knew what they were trying to do. Dress my bones in fresh branding and hope no one noticed the stink. So I gave them a gift. A mirror. I left pieces of my old business scattered across open source platforms, code libraries, forums Ethan clearly monitored. Bits of payment routing logic, checkout page templates, CRM scripts, stripped of anything legally binding, but still mine. And very tempting. I laced them with invisible tells. Harmless lines of code. Metadata comments. Things that meant nothing to a casual eye, but to the right kind of scrutiny, they screamed theft. He took them. Slowly. Sloppily. And Lindsay, true to form, didn't bother to check what she was standing on. But there was one moment, one investor. A guy from Santa Fe. He started digging. Too deep. Asked if certain back-end fields matched previous businesses. For 2 full days, I thought the whole thing was going to collapse before it reached her. I was ready to lose it all just to keep the fuse lit. Then Ethan responded himself. Cocky. Overconfident. He lied the perfect lie and sealed their fate for me. After that, I just watched. When the real collapse came, I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I stayed off stage. But if anyone had traced the first whispers about the code similarities, the shady LLC history, the archived pitch deck that looked just a little too familiar, they'd find my fingerprints. Not on the collapse. On the start. I didn't drag her down. I just moved the floor 2 inches lower every month and waited for her heel to catch. I built the timeline. Planted questions. Fed them to old vendors. Wrote anonymous forum posts that just had concerns. Let other people feel like they'd discovered something. Let them carry the outrage for me. But the best part? I never claimed credit. Because it wasn't about clearing my name. It was about watching her ruin hers, with the same casual confidence she used to ruin mine. I never saw the fallout firsthand. But I heard whispers. One vendor said she tried to apply for a project management role at a mid-sized PR firm in Phoenix. Made it through the first interview. But in the second, the recruiter asked a simple question. Are you the Lindsay Riley from Havenspark? She nodded, and the room went cold. I like to picture that moment sometimes. Her smile freezing, her voice catching just slightly, the way mine did the night she left. The realization that the room she walked into was already leaning away from her. That no one was going to clap this time. I got a message a few weeks later, from someone I hadn't spoken to in years. You okay? I didn't answer. There were nights I almost called her, not to explain, not to reconnect, just to hear whether her voice cracked the way mine once did. But I never dialed. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't even satisfied. I was just done. Some stories don't end with a punch. Some end with silence. That's what she gave me. And that's exactly what I gave her back.